what's up. People looking in the streets now. The attitude is there, not to get uptown, but beware, she's gonna put her foot down. She looks you in the eye, she doesn't know what she's got to do. Walks around, looking for the door now. I got a clear view, what I want and how to, in what mood, but I'm not the only boss here. She's a pretty half-blood, dark eyes, long hair. What's up? People looking in the streets now. The attitude is there, not to get uptight.
Welcome to WYCD Wicked, that stands for What You Can Do. It's your old pal Jake, and we are watching the fourth and final, Republican primary debate. These people have already demonstrated that they frankly have no business walking amongst the unincarcerated population of the United States, but we don't live in a fair society, so one of them could be president. The world we live in, folks. Let's try to change it. Hey, I'm not even entirely sure that we'll be able to stream this properly. I'm gonna try. If not, I'll see y'all on Left Past 10. And if you're watching the VOD in the future, and this video is about 10 minutes long, then you'll know it didn't pan out, and you have my apologies. Oh, my word. Folks are here already. Good to see you. Tinkerbell, hello. Wireless Mike, good to see you, my friend. The Anti-Corporatist, hello. I'm tired, so I'm probably not going to hang out for too long. No worries, my friend. No worries at all. I do have a temporarily major channel announcement for all of y'all. I was supposed to finish this cartoon like a month ago, more than a month ago, and there are things, plans that I have had cooking since the start, which require me to have content like that ready to go. I took a break from it for a while in the summer there. I assumed it would be relatively, the skills I had learned in the early days would translate well. They didn't translate as well as I thought. So here's the deal. I don't want to make content for you guys that I'm not excited about. I don't want to make content unless I feel that I have something worth telling you guys. I don't want to do it on the schedule alone. So there will be no schedule for a while. I'm going to go live when I got something to say. I'm going to go live when I have a plan that I think people should get in on. And if I got nothing, I'm just not going to go live. I will probably submit a lot of this stuff in the form of video essays for the next month or so. Who knows? But what I'm going to be spending the vast majority of my time on from now until when it's done is Fight Night. Not because I think it deals with the most important issues of the day, but because it is something that I think is interesting. It's something that makes up a significant chunk of another project that I'm going to be releasing right alongside it. And I think all this will start to make a lot more sense very soon. But that said, it's not really a hiatus. I'm still going to go live with What You Can Do, I imagine, a couple of times a week. I'm still going to be doing Left Past 10 every week-ish. assuming I don't just blow through a Wednesday, forgetting that it's a Wednesday. But that's the game plan. I'm ending the schedule until I, with the exception of when I have something specifically that I think is an important thing to share with folks. The idea from here on out being I'm only putting up content that I think is worth you clicking on. You don't have to agree with me, but I should at least think it's worth you clicking on. And some of this stuff that I've made, it's fine. My honest take in the moment. But what's the point? If there's not a what you can do at the end, if there's not a well thought out plan of action, then it's yet another opinion on the internet. And there's not only plenty of those, there's better ones. Like, for example, Sam Cedar and the gang. They are also doing a live stream of this very thing. I'm going to watch it after Left Past 10 tonight. But, I don't want you to think that the show that you guys have started or initially became fans of is going away. It's truly not. I simply want to get all my ducks in a row. So I hope y'all will understand. You've been, frankly, a pretty understanding bunch. So I'm leaning on that. Groove Dragon, as a confirmed hippie, I wholeheartedly endorse your more free-form framework. Well, thank you. Read the river, go with the flow. That's it exactly, my man. I appreciate it. Tyler Hackner, hello to you. Anti-corporatus, to Wireless Mike, I'll probably continue to go live in the mornings. Yeah, that's another thing, is a lot of times I watch you guys and my other friends on the internet for inspiration. Like, I was watching Sandy's stream yesterday, and I so badly want to do a video about something she was talking about right in the beginning, when she was talking about the difference between you and I flying around and private jets flying around, and how it's, like, absurd that we're worrying about ourselves when there's assholes that do 10 times the damage that any 100 of us do over our lifetimes, and they do it in a year. Okay, let's jump straight to it, gang. I want to see if this is going to work. If not, similarly, I don't want to waste your time. I don't want to waste somebody's time. You want to know what's weird is I have trouble during that I don't hear audio.
Iran has said the easiest way to get into
There we go.
America is through the...
Here's a weird thing that's happening with audio. I hear that service so much for the projects that I'm working on that I have lost track of what are songs that are on the service from audio and what's just a song that I listen to from like Google. It's now YouTube Music. It used to be Google Play Music. Monopolies, folks. But it's messing with me. I'll start to edit something with like a song in mind, or just like a beat in mind. Like, okay, I'll use this song, so it'll be bum 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 bum, and then I'll go to pull it up on audio, and I'll be like, oh yeah, that's right, it's from a soundtrack to a movie. It's not at all what I thought it was. Oh well. I just shared some of the semi-completed stuff from Fight Night. I'm so excited to find out what Doug and Paul think of it. I want to know if they're gonna politely ask me to take their names off of it, or if they are into it or indifferent. We'll see. We'll see. Oh, hello, Pinkerbell. Good to see you. PNC Bio. Good to see you as well. I'm hoping that we got us a stream. We'll see. This might cut out in 60 seconds. If it does, oh well. I hope not. The other thing I won't be able to resist doing, even if it's just me sharing my opinion, is talking about doing live coverage of this. I love doing this stuff as much as Matt hates it. And I love this content as much as Matt hates it. It will always be my semi-guilty pleasure. Oh, mercy me. Got a message, an old friend. Here we go. Let's rock, baby.
All right, thank you very much for joining us here. The big moment, the last chance for this woman and three men who want to be your president to make the case to you before the holy days as to why they have the goods.
Almost
Thank
on
you for
News
joining us here
Nation
at News Nation. We're very excited to be able to give you politics the way it should be delivered, which is a debate that is about disagreement, but with decency. That's focused not on little discrete issues that only matter to the establishment, but about the issues that are a part of your life and your family's concerns every day. That's what we're hoping you take from this tonight, and then you...
We're talking to a bunch of Republicans. They are not going to deal with anything having to do with reality. Just for the record. It'll be different brands of insane ranting from people that have absolutely no sense of how the world works at all, nor any interest in it.
History is about to be made.
History is not about to be made. None of these people will be president. Well. Oh, shit. Okay, good. That's a worrying cough. I feel like another in the chamber there, but I'm going to try to fight it down. Yeah. Just want to be very, very clear. None of these people are to be taken seriously as policymakers. They are to be taken quite seriously as threats. They will absolutely do everything that they can to tear America down and sell it for parts and pocket as much of that money as they can. But it is interesting. It is telling when you view who remains. I am of the belief that, like the Chaos Gods in 40K, these are different brands of evil that tell us a lot about the people who worship them. These are all people's second choice for president. And it's interesting to see how the different strands of this MAGA mind virus metastasize.
Welcome to the fourth and final Republican presidential primary debate of the year, live from the University of Alabama. I'm Megyn Kelly, host of the Megyn Kelly Show podcast on SiriusXM.
I'm Eliana Johnson with the Washington Free Beacon.
And I'm Elizabeth Vargas with News Nation, and we are live on News Nation and the CW. It is make or break time for the candidates on this stage right now, with the primary starting just weeks away. And we have a lot to cover over the next 2 hours. So let's begin with tonight's rules. Candidates will have 90 seconds to answer questions, 60 seconds to give a rebuttal at the moderator's discretion. You will all see the timing lights that will indicate when time is up and it's time to stop talking.
Says somebody should slip an Israeli flag in to see if they'll say the pledge to it.
Please keep your applause to a minimum.
I wonder.
All right, with that, let's get started.
Keep your applause to just a solid 60
On stage
seconds.
tonight, 4 candidates, all vying to become their party's nominee. And given the state of affairs in our political system right now, one of you might very well do it. Even many Democrats now admit that President Biden is a weak candidate. Just as many Republicans acknowledge that former President Donald Trump's multiple legal troubles could imperil his quest for a second term. All of which means one of you could wind up the leader of the free world. Having said that, Mr. Trump is nearly 50 points ahead of all of you in the national polls. 29 points ahead in Iowa, where the GOP caucuses are less than 6 weeks away. And so, as Republicans get ready to vote on whether any of you might be preferable to Mr. Trump, we begin with the question of electability. Governor DeSantis, your campaign and its super PAC have spent the most money, had the most high net worth donors, and had a wave of momentum coming into this race after your big re-election win in Florida. You were seen by many as the candidate most likely to consolidate the non-Trump field.
And
but
then
here we are, a month out from the first real votes, and you haven't managed to do it. In fact, Nikki Haley is beating you in New Hampshire and South Carolina now, and closing in on you in Iowa. Not to mention Trump, who is not only dominating in the early states, but is beating you in Florida by over 30 points. Is it fair to say, as Senator Tim Scott did when he dropped out, that voters are telling you, not no, but not now?
So we have a great idea in America that the voters actually make these decisions, not pundits or pollsters. I'm sick of hearing about these polls because I remember those polls in November of 2022. They said there was going to be a big red wave. It was going to be monumental, and that crashed and burned. The one place it didn't crash and burn was in the state of Florida. They weren't predicting that I would win the way I did, and I won the greatest Republican victory in the history of the state of Florida. I'm looking forward to Iowa and New Hampshire. The voters are going to be able to speak, and we're going to earn this nomination. And here's what we need. I am sick of Republicans who are not willing to stand up and fight back against what the left is doing to this country. You've got to be willing to stand strong, and you've got to be willing to beat these people. I'm the only one running for president that has beaten these people on issue after issue. We beat the teachers' unions when we did school choice. We beat Fauci on COVID. We beat George Soros when we removed 2 of his radical district attorneys. We beat the Democrats on election integrity. I have delivered results. That's what we need for this country. You have other candidates up here like Nikki Haley. She caves anytime the left comes after her, anytime the media comes after her. I did a bill in Florida to stop the gender mutilation of minors. It's child abuse, and it's wrong. She opposes that bill. She thinks it's fine, and the law shouldn't get involved with it. If you're not willing to stand up for the kids, if you're not willing to stand up and say that it is wrong to mutilate these kids, then you're not going to fight for the people back home. I will fight for you, and I will win for you.
That's what he said. So he represents the absolute
You left government
worst
service in 2018 with just $100,000 in the bank. 5 years later, you're reportedly worth $8 million, thanks to lucrative corporate speeches and board memberships like you had with Boeing. Weeks ago, you met with Wall Street heavyweights, including leaders from JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, and BlackRock. Several other billionaire investors are reportedly ready to endorse you, or recently have, all of which comes with expectations. Aren't you too tight with the banks and the billionaires to win over the GOP's working class base, which mostly wants to break the system, not elect someone beholden to it?
Well, thank you. It's great to be here. You know, first I'll tell you, just to respond to Ron, he continues to lie about my record. I actually said his Don't Say Gay bill didn't go far enough because it only talked about gender until the 3rd grade. And I said it shouldn't be done at all, that's for parents to talk about. It shouldn't be talked about with schools. In reference to donors coming on board, look, we will take support from anybody we can take support from. But I have been a conservative fighter all my life. I was a Tea Party candidate when I became governor. We opposed every single corporate bailout we possibly could. We passed tort reform. We passed one of the toughest illegal immigration laws in the country. We passed pro-life bills. We moved in unemployment from 11% to 3%. We took on the unions, and we took on Obama when it came to the unions, the Syrian refugees, and everything in between. And so I've had a fight.
And
so as much as Ron says that, that's not true. But when it comes to these corporate people that want to suddenly support us, we'll take it. But I don't ask them what their policies are. They ask me what my policies are. And I tell them what it is. Sometimes they agree with me, sometimes they don't. Some don't like how tough I am on China. Some don't like the fact that I've signed pro-life bills. Some don't like the fact that I may oppose corporate bailouts. That doesn't matter. That's who I am. And that's why the most conservative grassroots group in the country, Americans for Prosperity, endorsed me last week.
Well,
Americans for Prosperity, who have really done a lot
She didn't
to tear
respond
down
to the
country.
criticism. It wasn't about the Parents' Rights and Education Bill. It was about prohibiting sex change operations on minors. They do puberty blockers. These are irreversible. Talk to Chloe Cole. She went through this. Now she's an adult. She's warning against it. She may never be able to have kids again. That is what Nikki Haley opposed. She said the law shouldn't get involved in that. And I just ask you, if you're somebody that's going to be the president of the United States and you can't stand up against child abuse, how are you going to be able to stand up for anything? That is the truth. We have it on video.
On stage
I said that if you have to be 18 to get a tattoo, you should have to be 18 to have anything done to change your gender.
You said the law should stay out of it.
We're gonna get to this in more detail later. Let's finish with electability, but trust me, we're coming back to this issue. Mr. Ramaswamy, for months you campaigned as a unifier. Then you stood up at the first debate and attacked all of your competitors as bought and paid for. The second debate, you changed your tune, saying these are good people on this stage, admitting you can come across as a bit of a know-it-all and rejecting the practice of personal insults. By debate number 3, you called Nikki Haley corrupt, accused Ron DeSantis of wearing high heels, and told Ambassador Haley she should keep a closer eye on her daughter. Can you see how this has led some to conclude you are not, in fact, a unifier, and to question your authenticity?
Oh, man.
Megyn, I think there's a time and place for everything. We need somebody in the White House who absolutely is going to be a fighter when it counts. And I did say that there were some good people on that stage in that third debate. Doug Burgum was on that stage at that time, and I'll say that jokingly. Ron DeSantis is a good person, too. I want to go back, though, to Nikki Haley's comment from earlier that she is somehow not responding to the will of these donors. Nikki, you were bankrupt when you left the UN. After you left the UN, you became a military contractor. You actually started joining service on the board of Boeing, whose back you scratched for a very long time, and then gave foreign multinational speeches like Hillary Clinton is, and now you're a multimillionaire. That math does not add up. It adds up to the fact that you are corrupt. And when I said they were bought and paid for, I meant the Republican establishment, not the Democratic establishment. Now you have Reid Hoffman, the person who's effectively George Soros Jr., funding lawsuits across this country against Donald Trump to keep him off the ballot, funding left-wing causes. We discovered this week that he is one of Nikki Haley's largest supporters. Larry Fink, the king of the woke industrial complex, the ESG movement, the CEO of BlackRock, the most powerful company in the world, now supporting Nikki Haley. And to say that doesn't affect her is false, because it's after that meeting later that day that she says that every American needs to be doxxed by having their ID, their government-issued ID, tied to what they say on the internet. So I think that this is far more corrupt than I even imagined when I entered politics. But I will say this. It is going to take a leader from the outside
looks like an onion.
with fresh legs from the next generation to unite this country. Not the broken politicians who are puppets of the puppet masters, but the actual people in this country. Thomas Jefferson was 33 when he wrote the Declaration of Independence. I think it's going to take somebody whose best days in life are still ahead to see a country whose best days are ahead of itself. And I think I can reach that next generation better than anybody else in this race.
Thank you. Response.
Megyn.
Anything to say to
First of all, we weren't bankrupt when I left the UN. We're people of service. My husband is in the military, and I served our country as UN ambassador and governor. It may be bankrupt to him, but it certainly wasn't bankrupt to us. Secondly, I did serve on the board of Boeing. I did a lot of work with Boeing when I was governor. They were a great partner to me. I served for 10 months. And then when they decided after COVID that they wanted to go for a corporate bailout, I've never supported corporate bailout, so I respectfully stepped back and got off the board. I love Boeing. They build good commercial airplanes. They build airplanes for our Air Force. I am proud of them. They employ a lot of people in South Carolina.
I respect.
But that's why I left the Boeing board. There's nothing to what he's saying. And in terms of these donors that are supporting me, they're just jealous. They wish that they were supporting them, but I'm not going to sit there and deny.
But she's a demon like the rest of
Hold on, let me get the governor in, and then I'll go to Governor DeSantis.
Vivek, he wrote a book talking about ESG and these woke corporations and BlackRock. The idea that I want to do that in Florida, they were managing our part of our pension, and then when they did the ESG, I took $2 billion away from BlackRock. We took action. This ESG, they call it environment, social governance, and again, Nikki is meeting with all these people. They want to use economic power to impose a left-wing agenda on this country. They want basically to change society without having to go through the constitutional process. We've kneecapped it in the state of Florida. The next president of the United States needs to be able to go to that office on day one and end ESG.
Like
and the fact of the matter is, we know from her history, Nikki will cave to those big donors when it counts. And that is not acceptable.
And also not taste good.
Well, I did write that book, Ron, and the irony is Nikki Haley was heaping praise on me when I wrote that book, but now I worry. I was warning about the woke industrial complex in this country as a warning. Apparently, she read it as a how-to manual, just like she reads George Orwell's books as well. And so I think that that's actually far more dangerous than, this is really important for people to understand. We're marching towards fascism under Biden. Jack Smith has subpoenaed every last retweet that someone has issued from Donald Trump in the year 2020. The only person more fascist than the Biden regime now is Nikki Haley, who thinks the government should identify every one of those individuals with an ID. That is not freedom. That is fascism. And she should come nowhere near the levers of power, let alone the White House.
I've got to get to Governor Christie. I haven't forgotten about you,
No, but can I just say,
can you speak?
I really appreciate it.
How you doing, sir?
Good to see you.
Can you please speak to the requirement that you said that every anonymous internet user needs to out themselves? They're both hitting you on it.
I would be happy to, and I love all the attention, fellas. Thank you for that. I'll say this. What I said was that social media companies need to show us their algorithms. I also said there are millions of bots on social media right now. They're foreign, they're Chinese, they're Iranian. I will always fight for freedom of speech for Americans. We do not need freedom of speech for Russians and Iranians and Hamas. We need social media companies to go and fight back on all of these bots that are happening. That's what I said. As a mom, do I think that social media would be more civil if we went and had people's names next to that? Yes, I do think that, because I think we've got too much cyberbullying. I think we've got child pornography and all of those things. But having said that, I never said government should go and require anyone's name.
That's false. She said, I want your name.
She
as President of the United States, her first day in office, she said, one of the first things I'm going to do,
I said we were going to get the millions of bots.
She wants government ID to dox every American.
That's what she said. You can roll the tape. She said, I want your name. And that was going to be one of the first things she did in office. And then she got real serious blowback, and understandably so, because it'd be a massive expansion of government. We have anonymous speech. The Federalist Papers were written with anonymous writers. Jay, Madison, and Hamilton, they went under Publius. It's something that's important, and especially given how conservatives have been attacked and they've lost jobs and they've been canceled. You know the regime would use that to weaponize that against our own people.
Okay,
it was a bad idea, and she should own up to it. Come on now, what are you doing here?
15 seconds, and then there is the governor, former governor of New Jersey.
This cracks me up because Ron is so hypocritical, because he actually went and tried to push a law that would stop anonymous people from talking to the press, and went so far to say bloggers should have to register with the state if they're going to write about elected officials. It was in the, check your newspaper. It was absolutely there. I have never said government should
trample on your constitutional rights.
You can come back to it later.
This is more dangerous than the Democrats.
You're lying.
This section's over. Okay. Governor Christie.
Really?
Just that
I'm usually not somebody who gets missed, but okay, let's go.
What's happening? Okay, I got you. Listen, you endorsed Donald Trump in 2016 and 2020. You gave him an A for his first term. Since then, however, you've turned on him, calling him a liar, a loser, a con man, and someone who cannot win. You've even said that you got into this race just to stop President Trump. His approval rating with Republicans is currently at 81%. Yours is at 25. Your best state is New Hampshire, and even there, 2/3 of GOP voters say they would be angry and disappointed if you won. Respectfully, Governor, you have not stopped Mr. Trump, and voters may wonder how you could possibly become the nominee of a party that does not appear to like you very much.
Yeah, well, look, Megyn, it's often very difficult to be the only person on the stage who's telling the truth, and the only person who is taking on what needs to be taken on. I look at my watch now. We're 17 minutes into this debate, and except for your little speech in the beginning, we've had these three acting as if the race is between the four of us. The fifth guy, who doesn't have the guts to show up and stand here, he's the one who, as you just put it, is way ahead in the polls. And yet, I've got these three guys who are all seemingly to compete with, Voldemort, he who shall not be named. They don't want to talk about it. The fact is that when you go and you say the truth about somebody who is a dictator, a bully, who has taken shots at everybody, whether they've given him great service or not over time, who dares to disagree with him, then I understand why these three are timid to say anything about it. Maybe it's because they have future aspirations. Maybe those future aspirations are now, or maybe they're 4 years from now. But the fact of the matter is the truth needs to be told. And for us to go 17 minutes without discussing the guy who has all those gaudy numbers you talked about is ridiculous. I'm in this race because the truth needs to be spoken. He is unfit. This is a guy who just said this past week that he wants to use the Department of Justice to go after his enemies when he gets in there. I mean, the fact of the matter is he is unfit to be president, and there is no bigger issue in this race, Megyn, than Donald Trump, and those numbers prove it.
Governor Christie, we will be addressing that issue of Donald Trump in just a moment, but I'd like to first get to some questions on Israel. Governor DeSantis, tonight as we speak, the war is back on in Gaza. Israeli tanks are on the move and have surrounded the home of the leader of Hamas. 8 Americans have been held hostage in the tunnels beneath Gaza for 60 days now. American troops and warships in the Middle East are under attack. How far would you go as president to secure the release of those 8 American hostages? And would it include sending American forces into combat?
We have to look out for our people. When there are hostages, Commander-in-Chief, you have to do whatever you can to get them done. But the overall issue with this is this administration is trying to hobble Israel from being able to defend itself. They have a right to eliminate Hamas and win a total and complete victory so that they never have to deal with this again. Hamas wants nothing less than a second Holocaust. They would wipe off every single Jew off the map. They would destroy the state of Israel if we could. Joe Biden will say they support Israel, and then they do nothing but try to kneecap them every step of the way. You should not try to direct their war effort.
If Israel came out tomorrow and said, we are disbanding our military, we will be a peaceful nation from here on out. And if Hamas came out tomorrow and said, we, in the name of Allah, will do nothing from here on forward but devour infant children, the Republicans would immediately be on the side of Hamas. Why? Because it would be unequivocally evil. It would be so clearly the wrong side to be on that they would find a way to be on their side. That is who the Republican Party is. And that's who Ron DeSantis is. He's on the side of death, destruction, suffering, evil. Just evil.
So Biden has empowered Iran just like he's empowered other adversaries. We stand with Israel. They're our best ally in the Middle East. We have a unique relationship with them. And you will see a strong relationship when I'm the president of the United States.
But would you send American troops?
And a decent amount of my followers believe the apocalypse must be kicked off in Israel. That's what we're trying to do, and the world, for Jesus.
Was very specific. You said, would you send American troops as commander-in-chief? And he went on to this minute and 30-second hosanna about his knowledge of the military and what we need to do, and didn't answer your question. Look, when you're president of the United States, you're not going to have a choice whether to answer that question or not. Your generals, your Secretary of Defense, your Secretary of State, your National Security Advisor are going to present plans to you. They're going to look at you and say, do we go or don't we, Mr. President? And you can't give a 90-second speech about your military service, as laudable as it is.
Would you send American troops in to rescue those hostages?
Absolutely. If they had a plan which showed me that we could get them out safely, you're damn right I'd send the American Army in there to get our people home and get them home now. And I'll answer that question directly.
Thank you, Governor Christie. Mr. Ramaswamy, you have said it was irresponsible for Ambassador Haley to call Hamas's terrorist rampage an attack on America and for her to, quote, rabidly shout, finish them, end quote. The Hamas terror attack left dozens of Americans dead and was the deadliest attack on Jews since the Holocaust. Why wouldn't it be a good thing to finish Hamas?
Finish them was purposefully vague in a discussion that included Iran, which is what I objected to. And I think it's, as U.S. president, you have to be responsible. What happened to Israel was dead wrong. What Hamas did was medieval. It was subhuman. It was immoral. And we have to call that out for what it is on October 7th. But to say that that was an attack on America fails a basic test. I mean, Nick, if you can't tell the difference between where Israel is and the U.S. is on a map, I can have my 3-year-old son show you the difference. That is irresponsible because it has major consequences, because that doesn't leave room for what actually is an attack on America. So I believe I have the strongest pro-Israel position actually on the stage, even though it's a little bit different than the standard GOP talking points. And it is this. The founding vision of Israel, David Ben-Gurion, the George Washington figure of Israel, what did he believe? He believed that we don't want, as Israel, to depend on the fleeting sympathies of the West and have our hands tied. I think Israel has an absolute right to defend itself to the fullest, without the U.S., the UN, or the EU, or anybody else second-guessing their decisions, as the Biden administration, guess what, is now starting to do. I think that's a more deeply pro-Israel position than anybody else, and it keeps the actual lines of accountability clear because it is a pro-American position. And as leader of the United States of America, just as a father of 2 sons, my sole moral duty is to my family. As your next president, my sole moral duty is to you, the people of this country. That's how I'm going to lead. So I'll tell Bibi, you smoke the terrorists on your southern border, you go ahead and we're rooting for you. We're going to smoke the terrorists on.
He's way too casual about killing for somebody that never would or could, and certainly knows he will never be asked to. I don't care about what that Nancy has to say. Quick clarification. Ramaswamy might have seemed almost progressive for a second, didn't he? Oh, I'm not gonna further hinder Israel by yada yada yada. In other words, no, I'm not gonna send troops. Worth noting, Ramaswamy knows a significant chunk of his section of MAGA are the actual Nazis.
To Iran.
Anytime you have a thought about Republicans, just know your impression of them is not low enough. Doesn't matter how low it is. They are always lower than your worst expectations. At least that's been my experience.
Won't respond to is when you weaken the sanctions like they did on Iran that allowed China to send them billions to fill their proxies. What they don't respond to is when you give $6 billion for 5 hostages. That only makes them want more hostages. What they don't respond to is when they do 140 strikes on our men and women in Syria and Iraq, and we do nothing but just some small shots back. You've got to punch them, you've got to punch them hard, and let them know that. That's the only way they're going to respond. So the way you do that is you go after their infrastructure in Syria and Iraq where they're hitting our soldiers. That's what you do, and then that's when they'll back off. The problem is you have to see that all of these are related. If you look at the fact Russia was losing that war with Ukraine. Putin had hit rock bottom. They had raised the draft age to 65. He was getting drones and missiles, drones from Iran, missiles from North Korea. And so what happened? When he hit rock bottom, all of a sudden, his other friend, Iran, Hamas goes and invades Israel and butchers those people on Putin's birthday. There is no one happier right now than Putin because all of the attention America had on Ukraine suddenly went to Israel. And that's what they were hoping is going to happen. We need to make sure that we have full clarity.
And also understandable.
There is a reason, again, that Taiwanese want to help Ukrainians because they know if Ukraine wins, China won't invade Taiwan. There's a reason the Ukrainians want to help Israelis because they know that if Iran wins, Russia wins. These are all connected. But what wins all of that is a strong America, not a weak America. And that's what Joe Biden's given us.
I want to say one thing about the tie to Ukraine, if I may. So foreign policy experience is not the same as foreign policy wisdom. I want everybody at home to note that I was the first person to say we need a reasonable peace deal in Ukraine. Now a lot of the neocons are quietly coming along to that position, with the exceptions of Nikki Haley and Joe Biden, who still support this, what I believe is pointless war in Ukraine. And I think those with foreign policy experience, one thing that Joe Biden and Nikki Haley have in common is that neither of them could even state for you 3 provinces in eastern Ukraine that they want to send our troops to actually fight for. Look at that. This is what I want people to understand. These people have, I mean, she has no idea what the hell the names of those provinces are, but she wants to send our sons and daughters and our troops and our military equipment to go fight. So reject this myth that they've been selling you that somebody had a cup of coffee stint at the UN and then makes $8 million after, has real foreign policy experience. It takes an outsider to see this through. Look at the blank expression. She doesn't know the names of the provinces that she wants to actually fight for. And there's a puppet masters right there, the donors. The donors right there that are playing her like the puppet master.
Hold on. Let me just say something here. You
know, full of rusty nails.
His reasonable peace deal in Ukraine, he made it clear. Give them all the land they've already stolen.
An overabundance.
Promise Putin you'll never put Ukraine in Russia, and then trust Putin not to have a relationship with China. Let me tell you something. That's no reasonable.
That's not my deal. That's not my deal.
Yes, it's exactly what you said. You do this at every debate.
You say
no, don't interrupt me. I didn't interrupt you. Okay? You say this. You do this. You do this at every debate. You go out on the stump and you say something. All of us see it on video. We confront you on the debate stage. You say you didn't say it, and then you back away. And I want to say
exactly what I said, Chris.
I'm not done yet.
Well, this
now look.
Moderators. Moderators, cut the mic.
This is the fourth debate. The fourth debate that you would be voted in the first 20 minutes as the most obnoxious blowhard in America. So shut up for a minute. I want to say your version of no.
It should be standard.
I'll take that.
I want to say something else. We're now 25 minutes into this debate, and he has insulted Nikki Haley's basic intelligence, not her positions. Her basic intelligence. She doesn't know regions. She wouldn't be able to find something on a map that his 3-year-old could find. Look, if you want to disagree on issues, that's fine. And Nikki and I disagree on some issues. But I'll tell you this, I've known her for 12 years, which is longer than he's even started to vote in a Republican primary. And while we disagree about some issues and we disagree about who should be president of the United States, what we don't disagree on is this is a smart, accomplished woman, and you should stop insulting her.
So I'm going to take this, I'm going to take several times over.
So that, what I've just done. See what I've done? Look how easy that is. It's very easy to do this. I can do it here with my $0 budget. You cut the mic of the person who isn't supposed to be talking. Now, I get to choose that these Republican a-holes are really not worth listening to in fine detail unless you're being critical of them. But prevent the gish gallop. I'm just going to address the talking over each other. Because here's something we actually can do. Ahead of the next debate, make the people's stipulation that the mic is cut. I mean presidential debate. That's probably what's coming up next. The mic is cut when it's not your turn. It's a very simple rule. It should be standard for all debates. I realize that these punks make ridiculous requests. Don't make that negotiable. If you don't agree to that rule, you won't be on the stage with the rest of the candidates. Or, as for the next one, with the other candidate. And if the candidate refuses to go on the stage because they refuse to have an organized debate, they refuse to have their mic cut when the other person is talking, as a default, publicize that. Criticize them for it. Rake them through the coals. And they can go on and on and on, just like this. But the person who's supposed to be talking is the one who is heard. That's how to do it.
Attacks were launched against the United States in 2001. I brought the first two cases in this country against terrorists who tried to attack us again. And I know about the threat of terrorism and bullying in this country and around the world. And at that time, he was learning about the provinces in Ukraine, sitting with his smart-ass mouth at Harvard. That's what was going on. And so, and the fact of the matter is, and back then he was a Democrat. So, you know, the fact is that all he knows how to do.
Well, you were busy hugging Barack Obama getting him elected.
Thank you.
All he knows how to do is insult good people who have committed their lives to public service and not say anything that moves the ball down the field for the United States.
All right, thank you, Governor Christie. We are going to take a quick break, cool things down a little bit. When we come back, we're going to tackle issues on the southern border. We'll be back in a few minutes.
When we come back, we're going to act like brown people are trying to murder your children by way of the southern border. We are the problem. I just wanted to bring up one point before I go to comments. Nikki Haley had her positions defined by her opposition on stage, and then she said what they were. And they were very different things. They were very helpful just then. I would ask you to ask your Republican colleagues if they have only learned about what lefties believe from the mouths of the righties criticizing them. Because right-wingers are liars whose opinion can't be trusted, as we've just seen. Remind them of that. Let's read some comments. Michael Skiles, chivalry isn't dead. Yeah, we had a rare moment from Chris Christie. I step away for 30 seconds and it gets spicy, said Pinkerbell. Yeah. The anti-corporatists, nah, Jake, they love this. These guys need ratings like you wouldn't believe. Oh, I'm sure. It'll require us to pressure them. To say that we will only respect and yada, yada, yada. Domenico, good rule. With like that record scratch sound party stopper at the end of each candidate's allowed time. I love that. Guitar Dog, I'm impressed. Great, more open border rhetoric. The border is as open as it's been forever. Yeah. Wireless Mike, Christie is spitting fire tonight. He might just help burn the party down. Yeah, that's genuinely what I'm hoping for out of him, is just to get all the sane people we can away from back? No, it's not. Just to get all the sane the sane people we can away from the Republicans. Inevitably, Christie or Haley, when they are fully and firmly kicked out for not agreeing to be totally evil and instead only 95% evil, they will try to become Democrats, and they'll probably be taken, and I will literally yank clumps of my hair out. Domenico, why are the Democrats not holding any debates? I'm well aware Biden is the forlorn conclusion for the Democrats, but why no debates like these yet? Because there is only one primary challenger, and in the Democratic Party, where as opposed to it's two. There's two, but they just aren't a serious enough threat. I mean, the short answer is because the Democrats have an incumbent president. It's traditional not to hold debates when you have somebody in the position already. In fact, it would be viewed as a lack of confidence in the party itself. And the reason you're wanting one now in this time is probably because it would be accurate to show a lack of confidence in the party. It's probably because in your heart of hearts, you're not truly a Democrat. Or at least the Democrats are not truly what you are. The Democratic Party is an amalgamation. It's a bunch of different groups that are currently basically only held together by the acknowledgement of our mutually assured destruction if the Republicans are ever in control ever again. So I actually think it is good that we're teamed up with them. But I also think this could be, I don't think it will be, but it could be the last election cycle where folks like you and me are on their side, even tentatively. I think most likely the political void that is going to be filled will just go back to being lefty and righty, with the Democrats representing the right and progressives representing the left. But in answer to your question, it's because Biden is the incumbent. He's already got the job. So that's a huge advantage, and they want to keep it. Strategically, I think it's the right thing to do. But I don't like it.
Alabama, we are now going to go to the crisis on the southern border. Polls show immigration and the crisis are among the most pressing issues for Republican voters right now.
What crisis?
Both the issue of migrants crossing illegally into our country, and
Browns
the separate
are here.
issue of fentanyl being smuggled in mostly through legal ports of entry. All year, News Nation has been at the border documenting the crisis. In 2023 alone, Border Patrol encountered a record 2.4 million migrants.
With a frickin' walker
All four of you have talked tough.
to scale
the question now is how realistic is the
Welcome
talk?
Them.
So, Governor DeSantis, I'd like to start with you.
The crisis is that we have
You have pledged to
conservatives in
send
this
the
country.
military to the
We
southern
should solve
border on
that
day
crisis.
one of your administration with orders to shoot, quote, stone cold dead anyone illegally entering with a backpack that you believe contains fentanyl. Critics have called this a shoot first, ask questions later policy that would amount to extrajudicial killing.
And also,
you are a former military lawyer. Why do you think this idea of yours would be legal?
Murder.
The drug cartels are invading our country, and they are killing our citizens by the tens of thousands every year. We had a situation in Florida. There was an 18-month-old baby that was crawling on the floor of an Airbnb rental. There was fentanyl residue on the carpet, and the baby died. Is this acceptable in this country? I know the elites in D.C., they don't care. They don't care that fentanyl's ravaging your community. They don't care that illegal aliens are ravaging our community and overwhelming our community. The commander-in-chief not only has
illegal aliens are ravaging our community. Notice that, let me just break that down. I don't give a damn about the rest of his answer. So if it's in your heart that you want to hear it, sorry. Let's just take what he opened with and deal with that. She said, mostly, fentanyl's coming in through legal ports of entry, as Michael Keaton. Legal. If I had the wherewithal to have that clip ready, I would. And then he said, this guy said that we have a crisis of fentanyl because of the border and illegal immigrants. So the premise of the question is that the fentanyl is mostly not coming in through the border. He told you something to pull at your heartstrings. Baby died because of fentanyl. I'm assuming, like everything he says, that was a made-up thing. It didn't actually happen. I'm just assuming. Maybe I'm wrong. It's irrelevant. The point is, he said, unrelated thing. Also immigrants, as though they are related to this. If you were listening to DeSantis in the beginning and you were nodding your head like he's making a lot of sense, you are the mark. You're the kind of person that he relies upon scamming to have a career. You're why politicians are known to be liars, because their lying works on you. Fix that about yourself.
Biden just gave temporary protective status to 500,000 Venezuelans. That's 500,000 Social Security cards. That's 500,000 driver's licenses.
That's 500,000 Browns in our country. Ew. I'm white passing.
No, it can't happen again. For those that have been here longer than that, we've got to start seeing who is it, how long have they been here, have they been vetted, have they paid taxes, have they been working, and figure out who else is out there. But what I know is my parents came here legally. They put in the time, they put in the price. They are offended by those that are coming illegally. We can't let them skip the line. But when you talk about fentanyl like you did before, let's look at something else. Yes, I think we should send special operations over and take out the cartels. I think we should do a remain in Mexico policy so they never step foot in U.S. soil in the first place. But look at where fentanyl came from. Let's go to the heart of the matter. It came from China. That's why we need to end all normal trade relations with China until they stop murdering Americans with fentanyl. I promise you, they need our economy. They will immediately stop that. But this is where Trump went wrong. Trump was good on trade.
He's at least getting closer.
But that's all he was with China. Because here he allowed fentanyl to continue to come over. He continued to allow them to he would give them technology that would build up their military and hurt us. He allowed the Chinese infiltration for them to buy up farmland, to put money in our universities, and to continue to do things that were harmful for America. We now have a spy base in Cuba and police stations, and Trump didn't do anything about it.
Thank you.
China, though, I mean, listen, this is rich, because when she was governor of South Carolina, she was the #1 ranked governor of bringing the CCP into her state. She wrote a love letter to the Chinese ambassador saying how great a friend China is. You can look at it. We put it on our website, rondesantis.com. There's also a video of her as governor standing in front of a Chinese flag with a Chinese business saying that she now works for them, talking about this Chinese company.
I think he's a
so she's been very weak on China. Now, here's the problem. The rhetoric is different, but her donors, these Wall Street liberal donors, they make money in China. They are not going to let her be tough on China, and she will cave to the donors. She will not stand up for you.
15 seconds, Ambassador.
He's like an evil Muppet.
First of all, he's mad because those Wall Street donors used to support him, and now they support me. The second thing is he has a company, a Chinese company, UGAS, that he just did a rally there last year. They have given you $340,000 in campaign donations between them and their employees. They are tied to the Communist Chinese Party. Jinko Solar is another one. They went and expanded. You gave $2 million in subsidies.
I banned China from buying land in the state of Florida.
The Department of Homeland
I ejected the Confucius Institute. Nikki Haley brought Confucius Institutes to the universities in South Carolina.
That is not true.
I ejected them. So I have a record of standing up and do what's right. And here's the thing.
You have a record of lying.
She's trying to say things like that. Even the liberal media groups that usually if I say the sky is blue, they'll fact check me and say that's wrong. They looked at her charges. They said it was totally false, that they could not find one instance of me recruiting a Chinese business coming to Florida. You know why? Because we never recruited any Chinese businesses to the state of Florida.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Ramaswamy, over the past year, fentanyl has killed more than 75,000 Americans, 1,000 of them right here in Alabama. You have vowed to use the military to, quote, annihilate drug labs inside Mexico, something the president of Mexico said would be a hostile act. But fentanyl can easily be made anywhere, and labs that are shut down can easily and quickly be replaced. Are your tough enforcement policies offering false hope to a country racked by addiction?
To the contrary, I don't think it's going to have to come to that if we deal with the actual demand side problem that we also have in this country. I mean, the easy part is talking about how we're going to use our military to secure the border. I will, and I believe that everybody else wants to do the same thing. But the harder part is dealing with the crisis of purpose and meaning, the mental health epidemic raging across this country like wildfire. And there's
just want to make it clear. He said the easy part, the easy thing, the given that we're all going to do, the thing that we obviously all know we're going to do, is unleash the U.S. war machine within our own country. When they say put troops at the border, that's turning us into North Korea. Dictators need an other, and, you know, there's Browns to the south, so easy peasy, baby. Oh, these clowns.
Border like a modern opium war. I think it is going to take a U.S. president that's going to have a very different conversation with Xi Jinping than what Joe Biden just had in California. I will tell Xi Jinping, you will not only not buy land in this country or donate to universities in this country. U.S. businesses won't expand into the Chinese market until they're playing by the same set of rules. And the same country that's putting fentanyl into illegal pharmaceuticals in Mexico, it's no coincidence, is the exact same country that also unleashed hell on the world with the COVID-19 pandemic. We also have to hold them accountable with every financial lever that we have available. That is what it actually means to stand with a spine. And you mark my words, if we're willing to stand with the spine, China will absolutely have to fold because they're in a tougher spot than we are. And then we're back to playing by the same set of rules.
Thank you, Mr.
That's the answer.
I didn't say that. You said that. No, you're a poopy face. Yeah.
Ambassador Haley. Homeownership has always been part of the American dream, but it's increasingly out of reach for younger Americans.
Yeah.
This year, mortgage rates reached 30-year highs. Home prices have risen $190,000 over the past decade. Is this the free market at work? Or should the federal government do something to make homes more affordable?
Less regulation.
Well, first of all, I mean, you're exactly right. My daughter just got married, and I saw how hard it was for her and her husband to buy a home. Right now, the average homeowner in America is 49 years old. You've got young people everywhere. That used to be the American dream, and now it's out of reach. But you look at what happened. You first of all look at what the Fed did. The Fed did a terrible job when they allowed all of that money to go through. You saw the Treasury bond rates go up. That affected mortgage rates, that affected automobile rates, that affected insurance rates. And so now we have a high interest rate. You've got a supply issue. Ask any builder. The supply issues have continued to be there. That's caused the rate to go up. And then you've got insurances that have gone up. And so what you have is a lot of younger people who, one, can't afford a home, but two, the banks aren't lending them any money. They've made the regulations so hard that they don't want to give loans on mortgages anymore. So what we have to do is we have to open it up. We have to, one, grow our economy so that people have more money in their pockets. We've got to look at the supply chain and make sure that we are funneling that so that builders don't have to sit there and go overseas to find things. And then we need to make sure that we really stop paying down this debt, make sure that we stop the borrowing, stop the spending. I'll veto any spending bill that doesn't take us back to pre-COVID levels, because our kids are not going to forgive us for all the...
To recap, she said that she would make it worse by loosening regulations. That's what she said. Exactly what was predicted. All that other crap is just what they do to make the country even worse. Even worse, as their excuse for the initial thing they do to make it worse, which is deregulating the billionaire like Trump that got us into this problem.
This was fueled by a glut of federal spending. The Biden administration has added $6 trillion to the national debt so far, but President Trump wasn't exactly a penny pincher. His administration added $7.8 trillion. Do Republicans, including President Trump, share the blame for inflation? And what concrete steps would President DeSantis take to help Americans make ends meet?
The borrowing, printing, and spending of money was both parties in Washington, D.C. That's just a fact. These Republicans in Washington have spent. It's driven your prices higher, and it's driven your interest rates to the point where you can't afford. I met a young fella in Iowa. He had graduated college a couple years ago, and he's like, Governor, I don't have a chance. I'm gainfully employed. He's like, I have no chance to afford a home and start a family. That is taking the American dream away from people. So we're going to get the inflation down. We're going to get the interest rates down. We are going to reduce spending, and I will be willing to veto, and I vetoed a lot as governor of Florida, and we'll do that. We're also going to open up all of our domestic energy for lower the price of fuel. That's going to help the economy. It also help jobs, and we'll do it. But, you know, another thing that's burdening young people are these student loans. Now, I don't support having a truck driver having to pay a student loan for someone that got a degree in gender studies. That is wrong. We should not have taxpayers do that. What I'm going to do, though, is I'm going to get to the root cause of the problem. These student loans are going to be backed by the universities because they need to have an incentive to produce gainful employment for people. They should not be
backed by the universities means he will turn the universities into banks. Don't trust Republicans with anything, least of all money. No, let me try that again. Least of all your children's lives. But then after that, money. There's so little value from DeSantis beside confirming how evil he is that I want to read this instead. Pinkerbell, deregulate mortgage lending because that never went horribly, horribly wrong in my lifetime. Yeah. Public Utility also saying, markets are 100% manipulated. True. Tamara Chance, next shot, education.
Cryptocurrency plan will, quote, ensure economic freedom for Americans, end quote. Won't it also ensure economic freedom for fraudsters, criminals, and terrorists?
Look, fraudsters, criminals, and terrorists have been defrauding people for a long time. Our regulations need to catch up with the current moment. The fact that SBF was able to do what he did at FTX shows that whatever they have as the current framework isn't working. And I think it is nothing short of embarrassing.
Okay, so he's going to go into jargon for about 60 seconds. I'll just explain to you why Republicans want regulation on cryptocurrency. They want regulation on cryptocurrency because that will legitimize it. That's the only reason they want any sort of regulation. And they want Republican-style regulation, which is to say something that is so full of loopholes that it mostly doesn't exist. mostly doesn't exist. They just want the legitimacy. They want you to view Bitcoin as the same thing as a dollar or a franc or a euro. Because a whole lot of their friends have a whole lot of this stupid-ass, useless, fun money.
Federal bureaucrats. We will shut down government agencies that should not exist. We will rescind any regulation that fails the test of West Virginia versus EPA, which is the most important Supreme Court case of our lifetime, that said if Congress didn't delegate that to an administrative agency, then it's unconstitutional. These are seismic changes.
They are, and they might actually be the end of our country. The very boring end of our country. You know, like dying from pneumonia after you've been shot in the chest. You think the bullet's going to get you. You think the blood loss is going to get you, but then you get an infection when you're recovering. And it turns into pneumonia, and that's what gets you. That might actually be the end of our country. Decision he, because it by default ends just a book about that thick of regulation in the United States. The regulations which keep our economy healthy.
Central bank digital currency. They want to get rid of cash, crypto. They want to force you to do that. They'll take away your privacy. They will absolutely regulate your purchases. On day one as president, we take the idea of central bank digital currency and we throw it in the trash can. It'll be dead on arrival.
I am for that.
Gotta get a break. I have a whole second hour to get to. It's exciting. And when we come back, we got a big subject. Huge, you might even say. Donald Trump. Stay tuned.
That was a good joke. That was a solid gag. Let's read some comments. Oopsie daisy. Public utility. The justices will be back in the courtroom on November 27th? The 7 cases scheduled, or December 27th. The 7 cases scheduled for December's session include disputes over federal immigration law, taxation, and the power of administrative agencies. Let's hope that they have enough foresight to try to keep America going, at least through their lifetimes. They don't. The Mike's Dead show. Canadian student here. I get about $9,700 a year from the government after tuition is paid. Now that's interesting. That's very interesting. What? Expand on that a little bit. Do they give you that just to live on while you're studying? Wireless Mike. Megan is the worst. She's not great. Pinkerbell. Much like his campaign, I missed the context. Bad. Tamara Chance, universities are only for cranking out employees. What about knowledge for its own sake? Exactly. Thank you. Wireless Mike, give me the hundreds. Thank you. Public utility. Universities are businesses for profit. Are business for profit. PBS is under the boot of corporate sponsors too. Yeah, I would like to think that we. I would like to think that we will have a reawakening soon, an appreciation for knowledge in the U.S. But we'll have to see. On a related note, I should attempt to make this a money-making venture. If you are enjoying the coverage, if you'd like to toss a couple of bucks to your old pal Jake, please do. We're accepting donations through Super Chats and on my Ko-fi page. That's K-O-F-I. I will put the link in the chat right now. But if you would like to support me, that's the best way to do it. Either through Super Chats, which I will read live, or on Ko-fi. That's ko-fi.com/whatyoukando. The Mike's Dead Show. Yup. It is it is part of a disability credit and provincial tuition for low-income earners. That's awesome. Man, we should do that here. I will try to convince my countrymen to follow your lead. Hey, I may as well plug my content. The Mike's Dead Show. I am currently doing a cartoon which you will probably have some interest, being an internet lefty that is also Canadian. Some interest in being an internet lefty that's also Canadian. It's about whether or not Doug Ford should face criminal charges for the Green Belt fiasco. That's supposed to come out this month. Fingers are crossed that it will. Keep your eyes peeled, my friend. It's also wrestling. And it's also a cartoon. Wicked Foxy Dragon, good to see you. We should do, I am missing the operative part. We should do a lot of things over here that other places do. That's true. That's true. Domenico, national emergency is the Republicans retroactively bunch of wound up imbeciles. Yes. The anti-corporatist, do you get a higher percentage with coffee? I do, yes. I do. However, it's a double-edged sword. Part of the reason I stayed with YouTube solely for a while is because that's where my main show is located. And every time somebody gives me money in any form through YouTube, including just sitting through an ad that plays, YouTube notices and boosts me a little in the algorithm. However, we are now at a point where I'm not interested in a boost in YouTube's algorithm. I still want the main show based there, and will forever, unless anything changes. But I don't need to ride that algorithm anymore, and so I am trying to not do stuff based around it anymore.
About him now. Ambassador Haley, former President Trump recently promised, if he's reelected, to bring back and expand his program restricting immigration from Muslim countries. Here he is in Iowa on October 16th.
No longer will we allow dangerous lunatics, haters, bigots, and maniacs to get residency in our country. We're not going to let them stay here. If you empathize with radical Islamic terrorists and extremists, you're disqualified. You're just disqualified.
Ambassador Haley, do you support President Trump's plan for ideological screening?
Well, I don't think that you have a straight-up Muslim ban as much as you look at the countries that have terrorist activity that want to hurt Americans. You can ban those people from those countries. That's the way we should look at it, is which countries are a threat to us. You look at what came across the southern border. What worries me the most are those that came from Iran, from Yemen, from Lebanon. Those areas where they say death to...
All right, let me just toss this in here. Let's take for granted that what she's saying is true and these countries are as bad as she's saying. A moral people would then say we have an obligation to take refugees from those places. She, however, is not a moral person. And she knows that the people who would consider voting for her are not moral people. So when they hear those countries equal bad, she knows that the way to please her voters is not let's take and help the refugees from there, but let's make life even harder for them. Because bad countries equal bad people always, 100% all the way through.
Hitler, why? Because they
What a time to cut back.
Europe is committing suicide with the mass migration, and it's illegal and legal. Nikki Haley said the other day there should be no limits on legal immigration and that corporate CEOs should set the policy on that. There needs to be limits on immigration, and we should not be...
Okay, so again, try to show the moments from this stream where Nikki Haley says, that's not true, he's lying. Now either she's lying or he is, one or the other. Either way, I'd like you to ask your Republican friends to ask themselves, how much of your view of your political opposites comes from the things you've heard these liars say? Amongst themselves, just now, they acknowledge that they're lying. They're saying that they use lying as a political strategy. They lie. So what do you believe about that's based off their lies? That's a very healthy question for them to consider.
Party's talking about it because there are 1 million then officials, law enforcement officials in this country, And against that backdrop, we absolutely have the ability to deport anybody who's in this country illegally.
Thank you,
we
Mr.
need to be talking about
Ramaswamy.
more in this country.
Thank you. Governor Christie.
I actually did that as governor of South Carolina.
Governor Christie asked last night in Iowa whether he would be a dictator if he wins a second term in office. Donald Trump quipped, no, quote, except for day one, promising to seal the southern border. He has also pledged to begin the largest deportation operation in American history, saying that migrants are, quote, poisoning the blood of our country. He has pledged to round up and expel an estimated 11 million undocumented immigrants in the United States. What do you make of that plan?
I think it's completely predictable. I mean, look, he's made it very clear. There's no mystery to what he wants to do. He started off his campaign by saying, I am your retribution. 8 years ago, he said, I am your voice. This is an angry, bitter man who now wants to be back as president because he wants to exact retribution on anyone who has disagreed with him, anyone who has tried to hold him to account for his own conduct. And every one of these policies that he's talking about are about pursuing a plan of retribution. And yet, at the first debate, my three colleagues on this stage, when asked if he would be convicted of federal felonies, would they still support him, raise their hand, looked into the camera, and let everybody know that they would still support him even if convicted of federal felonies. Federal felonies, by the way. Federal felonies which involve our election process, federal felonies which involve the most sensitive of our governmental secrets, federal felonies where he instructed others to commit crimes, folks who are now agreeing to go to jail because of what they did in his name. So do I think he was kidding when he said he was a dictator? All you have to do is look at the history. And that's why failing to speak out against him, making excuses for him, pretending that somehow he's a victim, empowers him. You want to know why those poll numbers are where they are? Because folks like these three guys on the stage make it seem like his conduct is acceptable. Let me make it clear. His conduct is unacceptable. He's unfit, and be careful of what you're going to get. If you ever got another Donald Trump term, he's letting you know, I am your retribution. He will only be, Elizabeth, he will only be his own retribution. He doesn't care for the American people. It's Donald Trump first.
Thank you, Governor Christie. Governor DeSantis. Governor DeSantis. Thank you.
You know, he just said something
Governor
true
DeSantis,
because
Donald
Republicans
Trump
are
would
booing
be older on day one of his second presidency than Joe Biden was on day one of his first. You have said Trump is not the same man he was when he ran in 2016. Your campaign is running ads showing Trump confused. And you have said he has, quote, lost the zip on his fastball. You seem to be saying Donald Trump is no longer mentally fit to be president. Is that what you think?
Look, he is showing, Father Time is undefeated. The idea that we're going to put someone up there that's almost 80 and there's going to be no effects from that, we all know that that's not true. And so we have an opportunity to do a next generation of leaders and really be able to move this country forward. We also need a president that can serve 2 terms. I don't think Donald Trump, I think he's going to have, I don't think he'd be able to get elected. The Democrats want him to be the nominee. We see that. They are going to turn the screws the minute, if he got the nomination,
but do you think he's mentally fit to be president?
I think we need to have somebody younger. I think when you get up to 80, I don't think it's a job for that. But let me just respond to some of the things there. Look, the media is making a big deal about what he said about some of these comments. I would just remind people, that is not how he governed. He didn't even fire Dr. Fauci. He didn't fire Christopher Wray. He didn't clean up the swamp. He said he was going to drain it. He did not drain it. He said he was going to build a wall and have Mexico pay for it. We don't have the wall. He did say in 2016 he'd have the largest deportation program in history. He deported less than Barack Obama did when Barack Obama was president. So some of these policies he ran on in 16, I was cheering him on then, but he didn't deliver it. Here's what I can promise people. 100% of the things I promised as governor, I delivered on those promises. I beat the left time and time again, and that's what I'll do for you as president. We got to start winning again as a party.
I said I do.
Election, but we've got to start getting these.
All the culture wars, the useless nonsense, all the destructive horrors, I said I do. I did. I actually went ahead and did it. I don't give a jackal.
Eloquent on Donald Trump. You've been doing it all this whole race.
Why doesn't he just answer the question? The question is very direct. Is he fit to be president or isn't he? The rest of the speech is interesting, but completely non-responsive. And if we were in a courtroom, they'd strike the answer and say, Governor DeSantis.
No, they wouldn't. They would say that
you're a smart
they would
man.
argue that
No, they would.
No, they wouldn't.
They would
Chris.
strike the answer.
No, they
They'd
wouldn't.
say I'm wonderful.
Is he
We do
fit
not
or
want
isn't
to
he?
do someone
You're
that's
talking about him
almost
being 80 years old.
It doesn't mean that somebody couldn't get elected. That's up to the people to
Governor
decide.
DeSantis,
But I think we have an opportunity to do
No,
somebody who's
Governor
in.
DeSantis, let him finish.
Ron,
Okay.
is
I
he
think we have an opportunity to do somebody who is in the prime of their life.
Yes.
We don't have to
No
worry
talking
about all this stuff with
Ron.
confidence. We can get it done, and we'll do it.
I'm going to come to you. Finish.
Look, Father Time is undefeated. I don't know how he would score on a test, but I know this. We have an opportunity to nominate someone and elect someone for 2 terms who's going to be spitting nails on day 1 and for 8 years
So
deliver
you think he's
big
fit?
results. We should not nominate somebody
He won't answer.
who's almost 80 years old.
He's afraid to answer.
No, I'm not.
You have to either you're afraid or you're not listening.
No, it's not.
There's a simple
you
question.
don't want to hear the
Is he
answer
fit?
because
Is he fit?
Hey, nobody can hear this. No one can hear you. They can't hear you. You finish, and then you get it back.
All right.
Look, I'm a simple guy, okay? I hear the question, and I answer it. Is he fit or isn't he? I'll concede you're fit, Ron. You're a new generation. You're 44 years old. I wish I was still 44 years old, okay?
45.
So, well, congratulations. I'd still take 45. Is he fit or isn't he? And this is the problem with my 3 colleagues. They're afraid to offend. And let me tell you something. If you're afraid to offend Donald Trump, then what are you going to do when you sit across from President Xi, you sit across from the Ayatollah, you sit across from Putin? You have to be willing to offend with the truth and answer the questions.
I'm just hoping that Chris Christie generates enough disinterest in the way these people speak generally that nobody who takes themselves seriously sees a way that they can vote for Republicans. I want to normalize people making fun of Republicans and Republican candidates and all their nonsense and all their ineffective policies and all their pathetic abuse of power. I want to normalize people talking about that stuff in the boardroom, in the class of people that must wear suits because they are fucking slovenly.
Begging Donald Trump for that endorsement.
And you attacked him in your book a year ago.
Same thing with Chris Christie as a lobbyist, begging them for COVID money for his special interests in New Jersey, prepping him for the debates last time around. These people are now Monday morning quarterbacking some decision he made. I think the real enemy is not Donald Trump. It's not even Joe Biden. It is the deep state that at least Donald Trump attempted to take on. And if you want somebody who's going to speak truth to power, then vote for somebody who's going to speak the truth to you. Why am I the only person on the stage, at least, who can say that January 6th now does look like it was an inside job? That the government lied to us for 20 years about Saudi Arabia's involvement in 9/11? That the Great Replacement theory is not some grand right-wing conspiracy theory, but a basic statement of the Democratic Party's platform? That the 2020 election was indeed stolen by big tech? That the 2016 election, the one that Trump won for sure, was also one that was stolen from him by the national security establishment that actually put up the Trump-Russia collusion hoax that they knew was false. There's a reason why I'm the only person on the stage who can say these things. That's what it's going to take, not people who are licking his boots one time and now Monday morning quarterbacking him and criticizing him when it's convenient.
Governor Christie.
I lick the boots all the time.
You do not favor a ban on trans medical treatments for minors, saying it's a parental rights issue. The surgeries done on minors involve cutting off body parts at a time when these kids cannot even legally smoke a cigarette. Kids who go from puberty blockers to cross-sex hormones are at a much greater likelihood of winding up sterile. How is it that you think a parent should be able to okay these surgeries, never mind the sterilization?
Let me be clear, we're talking about a sliver of a sliver of a sliver of a fraction of the population.
Because Republicans believe in less government, not more. In less involvement with government, not more in government involvement in people's lives. And you know what, Megan? I trust parents. And we're out there saying that we should empower parents in education. We should empower parents to make more decisions about where their kids go to school. I agree. We should empower parents to be teaching the values that they believe in their homes without the government telling them what those values should be. And yet we want to take other parental rights away. I'm sorry. As a father of 4, I believe there is no one who loves my children more than me.
Just to be clear, and so yeah, just to be clear, this was a non-winning issue. Christie is going for the centrists, the anti-trans bigotry. He's not even calling out the lies for what they are. He's just saying parental rights. But he does. If he were to get a poll that told him that the only way to win election, let's say he won, God help us, in 24, and the only way to win election in 28, re-election in 28, was to kill all trans people, he would order it done. Wouldn't even hesitate. So long as his lawyer, the White House counsel, said, "Oh yeah, you'll it's fine. We're evil enough to get away with that," he'd say, "Good, do it, kill them all." He cares that little. He does not have genuine principles because, and I stress, he's a Republican. Now let's hear some bigotry.
Follow-up question for him, and you guys are going to get to weigh in, okay? Here's my follow-up question. You talk about parental rights. Let's talk about them. When you were governor in 2017, you signed a law that required new guidelines for schools dealing with transgender students. Those guidelines required schools to accept a child's preferred gender identity even if the minor's parents objected.
Not true.
And it said that there is no duty for schools to notify parents if their son or daughter changes their gender identity, allowing this serious issue to remain a secret between the school and a child. No. How is any of that pro-parental rights?
By the way, that's simply not true.
You're doing what you accuse me of, Chris. It is absolutely true.
That's simply not true. That's simply not true. That law was put into effect in 2018 and regulated in 2018 after I was out of office, Megyn. No, we did not, Megyn. We did not issue those guidelines, and you're wrong about that. Simply wrong. I have stood up each and every time.
So I think if this is one issue that's disqualifying, it's this one.
I stood up every single time for parents to be able to make the decisions for their minor children.
Really going
every single time, parents should make those decisions. And by the way, you know what? Every once in a while, parents are going to make decisions that we disagree with. But the minute you start to take those rights away from parents, you don't know that slippery slope, what rights are going to be taken away next, and what's going to be focused on.
As a parent, you do not have the right to abuse your kids. This is cutting off their genitals. This is mutilating these minors. These are irreversible procedures. And this is something that other countries in Europe, like Sweden, once they started doing it, they saw it did incalculable damage. They've shut it down. I signed legislation in Florida banning the mutilation of minors because it is wrong. We cannot allow this to happen in this country. And I know Chris disagrees with me, and I think he has an honest position. Nikki disagrees with me. She opposes the bill that we did to ban that. She said the law shouldn't get involved with it. You said the law shouldn't get involved with it. She also, though, I think, and this flows from what she did as governor of South Carolina, they had a bill to try to say that men shouldn't go into girls' bathrooms. And she killed that bill, and she bragged that she killed that bill. Even to this day, she bragged that. I don't think men should be going into little girls' bathrooms. I think it's wrong, and I think we have every right to protect them from that.
I am going to come to you. I promise to have seconds. Go quickly.
I think the North Star here is transgenderism is a mental health disorder. We don't let you smoke a cigarette by the age of 18. We don't let you have an addictive drink of alcohol by the age of 21.
Let me just use the mute function to again show you what a lovely relief it would be if this was a normal part of the debates. And also to demonstrate that there are things people can say that make everything else they have to say irrelevant. That's one of them. Transgender issues are not mental health issues. This is the same rhetoric they used about homosexuality in the 50s.
That when I was governor, 10 years ago, when the bathroom situation came up, we had maybe a handful of kids that we're dealing with an issue.
We didn't
and
realize
I said,
and appreciate
we don't need
how
to bring
evil
government
all
into
of my
this,
constituents
but boys
were
go
yet.
into boys' bathrooms, girls go into girls' bathrooms, and if anyone else has an issue, they use a private bathroom. Now, 10 years later, we see that this issue has exploded. And this shows how hypocritical Ron continues to be. When he was running for governor and they asked him about that, he said he didn't think bathroom bills were a good use of his time. You can go look that up.
I signed a bathroom bill in Florida, so
But
that's
you
obviously
no.
not true.
So the idea that you would say that I was against
that. You didn't. You killed it. I signed it. I
We
stood up
didn't.
for little girls. You didn't do it. And there was this going on. I was actually just in South Carolina. Some of the legislators told me at the time there were boys going into the girls. That's the whole reason why they did it. And so they say when she does that explanation that doesn't hold water. This is the upstate of South Carolina. I signed the bill. I protected the girls.
South Carolinians,
She did not do it. I know that.
Because South Carolinians, no. You are not going to talk about my state like that, because I will tell you for a fact, South Carolinians never allowed that to happen, and we did not have that issue at the time. What I have always said is boys go into a boys' bathroom, girls go into a girls' bathroom. But hold on one second. I also say that biological boys shouldn't be playing in girls' sports, and I will do everything I can to stop that, because it's the women's issue of our time.
And I signed legislation to protect women's sports. I actually get this stuff done.
Thank you, guys. We're going to move on. Mr. Ramaswamy, when discussing your Hindu faith in September, you seemed to take a shot at Ambassador Haley, who is also Indian American and who converted to Christianity as an adult. You said, an easy thing for me to do, being a politician, is to shorten my name, profess to be a Christian, and then run. Make Vivek Vicky or whatever, end quote. Are you questioning Nikki Haley's Christian convictions? And why has your campaign made a point of referring to Ambassador Haley by her given first name, Nimarata?
I don't think any of these people believe in anything except whatever golden calf gives them their coins.
There. Here's what I will say is deeper. I don't question her faith, but I question her authenticity. And I think that's deeper here. We were just talking about the trans issue. This is a symptom of a deeper cancer in American life, identity politics. This new religion that says your race, your gender, and your sexuality are your identity. It is anti-American. It is meritocratic. It's anti-meritocratic, and it is dividing this country to a breaking point. And I've spoken about this to the left. My books are all about this. I've preached this to the left, but it's even worse when Republicans try to play the same game. We're talking about that trans issue. And Nikki Haley's campaign launch video sounds...
So, just to explain where Ramaswamy is coming from and what section of the jackals he represents, he's the online MAGA types, of which there are a ton of Nazis, and, to my eternal shame, a ton of atheists. If you have an image of atheists in your head that are smug and rude, and, okay, great. Smug and rude and act like Ramaswamy just did, right there. It's those cats that are largely responsible for it. But that is why he can play around with this, whereas in the past you couldn't have fathomed somebody running for the presidency as a Republican unless they were annoyingly Christian about it, unless they were performatively and certainly not sincerely Christian. But the more they change these things, the more they stay the same, because he's being performatively loose with his own religious views.
To the question that was to you.
Okay, we got to move on to this. Now, by arrangement with the Republican National Committee, we've got two questions for you about the Justice Department and our election system. Here's Tom Fitton with Judicial Watch. Governor Christie, this one's for you.
What are you going to do to make sure the Justice Department is corrupt for us?
President Trump and many of his supporters claim federal law enforcement agencies have abused his civil rights for the last 8 years by, among other things, spying on him and now prosecuting him while having treated Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden with kid gloves. A recent Gallup poll shows that Americans think more highly of the U.S. Postal Service than they do the FBI or Justice Department.
As they're supposed
What would you do as president to restore the faith of the American people in these agencies?
Show them all the evidence?
Well, first off, I'm the only person on this stage who's actually done a job in the Department of Justice. I was the U.S. Attorney in New Jersey and the 5th largest office in this country, appointed by President Bush on September 10th, 2001. And it was an extraordinary time in this country to be on the front lines of fighting the greatest attack against our country since Pearl Harbor. And I'm proud of the 7 years I spent in the Justice Department. And one of the reasons I am is because I had an Attorney General when I came in named John Ashcroft. And John Ashcroft stood up and told each and every one of us our job was to do one thing, to make sure justice was done every day, regardless of partisanship, regardless of gender or race or any other consideration. And that's what we did for 7 years. And at a time when our country was at its greatest moment of danger in the last 40 years, we did exactly that, and there was not another domestic terrorist attack on this soil. So what I would do as president, having had that experience, and the only one who's had that experience, is to pick an attorney general who will absolutely do the same thing that John Ashcroft did. To pick U.S. attorneys who will only care about making sure that justice is done without regard to any other consideration but the facts that are presented and whether someone is guilty beyond a reasonable doubt and the government can prove it. We have had attorneys general like Eric Holder and Loretta Lynch and Jeff Sessions and now our current attorney general who have not met that standard. And the only way you restore people's faith in the justice system is to put someone like that in charge of the Justice Department, and then as president to get the hell out of the way.
One hopes that corrects itself.
This government, you guys are doing a great mail balloting and no ballot harvesting. We even have an agency that prosecutes people for violating election laws. The result of that, in both 2020 and 2022, we counted millions and millions of votes on election night, produced the results, it was transparent, and everybody was happy. That is not happening throughout this country. But let me tell you this as the nominee. I think it's important. Not every state's where we need it to be. There is ballot harvesting in places like Nevada, all these places. I am not going to fight with one hand tied behind my back. I'm going to have organizations in all the swing states. If they're harvesting, we're harvesting. If they're Zuckerbucks, we're Zuckerbucks. We are going to exploit whatever the rules are. I favor changing the rules to be like Florida and some of the other.
We're going to try to cheat. We're going to accuse the Democrats of cheating every time we find a way we think we can cheat. We're going to develop a method of cheating, which Republicans are famous for doing. And then, we're going to say Democrats are doing it, so we don't have a choice. We just have to. Anybody who tells you they support a Republican in 2023 is telling you they are against democracy. It is one and the same. And if they don't realize that, do them the courtesy of explaining to them the facts of life. Not an acceptable stance. It's not one of the okay political stances. Overton window backfired. They tried to tear it out. They tried to take a sledgehammer to the whole wall. The appropriate response is to shut them out of it. In the literal Overton window, I suppose I shouldn't say literal, but the Overton window being those things which are considered within the realm of acceptable. Republican can't be one of them. Republican is the traitor option. Like being an actual Nazi. Simply shouldn't be acceptable and should be reacted to with the same, if not passion, it should be reacted to with the same clarity of purpose. You're telling me you're a Republican? What the hell's the matter with you? Explain yourself. Justify your traitor viewpoint, because that's what it is. Let's read some comments. The anti-corporatist. Wasn't there a country artist also named Loretta Lynch? There was. There was. Wicked Foxy Dragon. Hey, keep my state's name out of your voice. Yeah. Domenico Era remix. Yeah. The Mike's Dead Show. If they are Brooks Brothers, we are Brooks Brothers. Yeah. Tamara Chance. Pretty sure news station commercials are aimed at white Fox News viewers. Yes, although I was fascinated to see a TikTok commercial in there. Oh, what I suspect that comes from is TikTok simply not knowing its crowd. The way these things work is you sell them in a, well, this might be different because of the debate, but online you sell them for a station like this traditionally in just chunks of time, and you have people you auction the time essentially, and up into the last millisecond before the commercial plays, that time is up for auction, and at any point it's just whoever the highest bidder is. And if you're a company that's advertising, you'll put in your highest bid and you'll say something in terms of software along the lines of, as soon as this is available, give it to me. Sorry for that bit of boring stuff, but that's generally what happens. And yes, it is based off the interests of those who tend to frequent the site. Oh my gosh, Groove Dragon correcting me here. Loretta Lynn, not Lynch. Appreciated. You're right and I'm wrong. Tamara Chance, pretty sure the news station commercial. Yeah, we read that. Oh, Donald James, good to see you. Yas up, sup, peeps. Hello there. Howdy, buddy. Fun fact, I'm trying to learn Creole, not Creole, K-R-I-O, Creole. It's Sierra Leone vernacular. Because I'm trying to figure out what the hell's going on with the attack that happened there, and the only station I could find that's regularly covering it speaks Creole, which is almost English but not quite. And so it's like, the difference between Spanish and Italian. They're very close but not quite the same. So I'm trying to learn Creole, and it's a fun language, but I'm not going to learn it in time to give you guys a news update. Wireless Mike helpfully reminding me, left past 10 and 30. Yeah, when that started glitching out like that, I was pulling up Discord. I think those two things might be related. I am going to jump off at the absolute latest at 9:59. But hopefully we can get through the majority of this thing first, because, ooh, boy. As much as I despise these people, I do like understanding what they represent. In this case, the four chaos gods. Speaking of,
the final GOP presidential primary debate of 2023. We're going to talk about our college campuses, starting with you, Ambassador Haley. House Republicans yesterday hauled elite university presidents up to Capitol Hill to answer for the displays of anti-Semitism on college campuses. These leaders, including the
displays of anti-Semitism, meaning protests in favor of Palestinian civilian lives. Displays of anti-Semitism. But no, they're going to find some of Ramaswamy's fans who spray-painted Nazi signs within 10 blocks of the college campus, and they will pretend like that's the people who don't want Palestinians killed.
On those campuses, every one of those college presidents would have been up in arms. This is just as bad. The idea that they would go and allow that kind of pro-Hamas protest or agree with the genocide of Jews and try and say that they needed context on that, there is.
No, there is context. First off, she just lied, negating everything else she has to say. Why does it negate everything else she has to say on this? Because she started off, she framed it as a lie. So I'll use this time to talk. They are not pro-Hamas protests. They're anti-Palestine genocide. There's a massive difference. I know she knows the difference, but if she didn't, it would mean she's disqualified herself from leadership, even in her own state. Leadership of a Dairy Queen, much less in government. But she does know the difference, and she's intentionally trying to make you and your family racist. It's not an exaggeration. She wants you to see no difference between Hamas and the Palestinian people. I'll tell you what the difference is. The Hamas is MAGA for Gaza, where the Palestinians largely live right now. Not by their own choice, even, because they are essentially in an open-air prison. I think it was 16 years ago that they came to power, and there hasn't been an election since. By the way, Netanyahu put him in power.
The government thought it had a clear-eyed view of the threat from Hamas. In fact, according to the New York Times, it even had Hamas's attack plan and dismissed it as an aspiration. The Israelis were wrong. In our country, the FBI director told the Senate panel just yesterday that he sees, quote, blinking red lights everywhere, and that the threat level has, quote, gone to a whole nother level since October 7th. Which of the threats facing our country do you worry could blindside us?
What worries me and what keeps me up at night is what happens between now and Election Day while Joe Biden's in office. That's what worries me more than anything else. But I'll tell you that America right now is acting like it's September 10th. We better remember what September 12th felt like, because it only takes one. And whether you're looking at...
Most interesting thing that just happened is she tried to get a big applause line, or rather, she got an applause line, hating on Biden, and this is what it sounded like. Interesting that Biden is not passionately hated by Republicans. He's viewed as the enemy, but he's not the hated enemy like Hillary Clinton. Still white, he's still Christian. I'm making a caricature of Republican voters. I don't know why, but he doesn't have that same level of animosity. Doesn't bring it up.
Said he would do.
We will be able to deter that from happening. I think that's the important thing. We need a strategy of denial so that we're deterring Xi's ambitions.
What if it doesn't work?
It's going to work. Taiwan's an ally. We have longstanding American policy, and you know how that's done, and we will follow that. But here's the thing. Taiwan is important not just because of semiconductors. It's important because if China is able to break out of this first island chain, they're going to be able to dominate commerce in the entire Indo-Pacific. They will use that to export authoritarianism all around the world, including here in the United States. You look at some of these guys.
Interesting. So we should pin them on that. So what you're saying then is, you're agreeing, Ron DeSantis, authoritarianism is bad. Let's talk about how you run Florida.
National security.
If Christie has the balls to actually bring that up, that specific, those two things, the 1-2. You just said it's bad. Let's talk about how you run Florida. That will actually give me a shred of respect for Chris Christie, and it might actually give him a political future.
Taiwan, quote, let's open a branch of the NRA in Taiwan and put an AR-15 in the hands of every family and train them how to use it. That will give Xi a taste of American exceptionalism, end quote. The National Police in Taiwan announced a zero-gun policy last year. Is this a serious policy proposal? And if it isn't, why do you keep repeating it?
Well, it's part of a broader deterrence strategy. And so I think I'm going to respectfully disagree with Ron here. I think the next U.S. president needs to be crystal clear that at least for the foreseeable future, the U.S. will absolutely defend Taiwan. And it is with that clarity that we actually achieve deterrence. But I have a broader strategy than that. We need to get on side in our relationship with India, take it to the next level. India has to be able to block the Andaman Sea, which is where China gets most of its Middle Eastern oil supplies. That's critical. I also do believe the Second Amendment is a critical way of preventing foreign autocrats from being able to it's worked in America. Why wouldn't it work in Taiwan? So it is part of a broader strategy. But I do think that we need to be specific about our deterrence.
Let me just be clear, because I respect so little of what Ramaswamy has to say. Let's pitch clean energy from a nationalist pig point of view. You know, an evil nationalist point of view. The quicker we can get off oil, the quicker we leave the rest of the world scrambling and fighting over this dwindling resource. Hell, we can even sell it without concern. If we can get all of our killing machines and all of our buses and cars and, hell, even planes, if we invest in it and don't give that money to Elon Musk, if we can get these things running off of batteries that are rechargeable and work better than 1900s era gasoline engines, we can do that. We will leave the rest of the world in the dust trying to catch up to us. That's a nationalist pitch for clean energy.
To pay if they go into Taiwan. They need to know that there is going to be a force that's going to go against them. And they need to know it's not just going to be the United States. That is why we need to build our partnerships with India, with South Korea, with Japan, with the Philippines, with Australia. We need to start pulling that alliance together. And the first way we do that is we need to make sure that on day one we look at the fact, if China pulled the rug out from under us tomorrow, would we be ready? Think about what happened during COVID. Everybody told you to wear a mask. They were made in China. Everybody told you to take a COVID test. They were made in China. Everybody went and, I mean, everything that happened. If you go to the drugstore, all those medicines are made in China. We have to make sure that we are not relying on China for anything related to our national security, which means let's start focusing on doing deals with our friends now.
Thank you, Ambassador. Governor Christie, I'd like you to weigh in on that. And do you think arming every family in Taiwan with an AR-15 is a plausible policy?
You know, I don't think we have constitutional authority over Taiwan to give them a Second Amendment. I think they can only do that for themselves. But look, I want to be really clear. Once again, I want to play the role of actually answering your question, which is if China went after Taiwan, you're absolutely right. I would, as president, have us go militarily and defend them. Secondly, I'm not afraid, based upon those economic relationships, to do that, because these economic relationships mean nothing. Nothing. If what's going to happen is that China is going to come and act in that region of the world however they see fit. It's not right. And I'll say this about what I heard from Nikki earlier. She said that Donald Trump was good on trade. He wasn't. And the proof that he wasn't good on trade with China is that all he did was impose tariffs, which raised the prices for every American. You want to know what has contributed to inflation in this country? Yes, it's more government spending. Yes, it's the fact that we're printing too much money. Absolutely. But it is also the increase in prices that were driven by Donald Trump's tariffs. And one last thing. You can't say he was good on trade because he didn't change one Chinese policy in the process.
True. Let me address this from anti-corporatists. Yeah, no, Jake. We have a lot of work to do to get our government not to be owned by big oil. The oil lobby makes AIPAC look like little schoolgirls. Well, makes them look like children. That's true. Oh, good. I don't care about the same. But I'm coughing. My point was to make an argument for it. It will begin with getting some people convinced to support such a position. But you're right, we do have a lot of work to do. We also have a necessity to get that work done. This is going to involve, in part, making pitches people with different priorities than our own. We on the left, believe in treating human beings like human beings and being decent and what have you. Whereas people like this want as much for themselves and as little for anyone else as possible. It would behoove us all to flex our muscles a little bit, because we are in an era, flex our muscles rhetorically. to get you to limber up is more what I'm trying to say. To get used to approaching things sideways. Because we are in an era where we are so in the right. We are so in the right about all of these policies that basically every group has an interest in progressive policy getting passed. And learning the different ways of pitching that, I think, is very important. Let's hear what their nonsense is now.
What's something that's awful that's happening in our healthcare system? They'll pay for anything like feeding tubes, doctors to be pill pushers, but for the procedures that can actually make these patients better, we have a broken healthcare system that doesn't pay for it. My wife, Apoorva, in many cases, does not get paid for those procedures. She does them anyway because it's the right thing to do. But that does not work system-wide. So here's the answer. We don't have a...
She's married to a conservative. She does nothing charitable. She does nothing to benefit anyone other than herself. I know that about her with complete certainty, just based off who she is willing to be in a room with for hours at a time.
Otherwise, and here's how we deliver that. End the antitrust exemptions for health insurance companies. That's where the competitive marketplace begins. That's
we really need to stop all this anti-monopoly stuff.
The Trump administration and private industry developed a COVID vaccine in record time. The program protected the drug companies from virtually all lawsuits over vaccine injuries. The government has a program to compensate for such harm, but critics say it is a black hole of bureaucracy. 12,000 claims filed, 10% decided, only 8 payouts so far, in a forum with no right to counsel, no hearings, no appeals. Mr. Trump says he's very proud of warp speed. Should he be?
Well, this question specifically on liability goes back to actually Reagan. And Reagan is a president who I admire. Many of us do. I think that reviving that spirit is in many ways going to be good for this country in so many ways. But one of the areas where he erred was this special form of lobbying to say that one kind of manufacturer, a vaccine manufacturer, cannot be sued for their product liability. So I have pledged, it is part of my legislative agenda, we will repeal that, just like we will repeal every other form of crony capitalism. People who have been harmed by those vaccines deserve accountability. They cannot be forgotten Americans. And
don't let this guy anywhere near levers of power, ever.
Important in those alleged times of emergency. If we had been allowed to openly debate the merits of those vaccines, they would have been never mandated in the way that they were. And in general, I don't think that we should want capitalism and democracy to share the same bed anymore. It's time for a clean divorce. But I don't like the crony capitalism.
Oh, yeah. Basically everything he pitches would make us into, I'm sorry, I don't recall the correct term for it, but a third world country. It would make us into a, not even that, into damn near feudalism again. His pitch is for internet people, and it's designed to confuse non-internet people who don't follow this stuff at all into thinking he knows what he's talking about. That's why this tone and this pitch and this very confident manner, that's the purpose of all that.
What this government did during COVID-19. That includes the mRNA shots. They put it out. It was experimental. People wanted it. Then the government started trying to mandate it, to say you don't have a right to put food on your table if you don't take an mRNA shot that was under emergency use. They tried to take nurses away. Now in Florida, we blocked that. We provided protections for everybody so that they wouldn't lose their job. You also have the FDA approving an mRNA shot for 6-month-old babies. There was no data to support that. They're doing it because Big Pharma will make money. So I'm going to go in there, CDC, NIH, FDA. We're going to clean house. There's going to be a reckoning because right now nobody's been held accountable for any of the damage. And they're going to try to do it again. When I'm president, this will never happen to our country ever again.
Thank you, Governor DeSantis. And we will be right back in just a few moments for our closing statements from our 4 candidates.
13 minutes. Do I have time for closing statements? I don't know, but I definitely have time to read some comments. Let's look at what y'all have been saying. Donald James. That's the libertarian philosophy. Feudalism. Yeah. Wicked Foxy Dragon with a well-timed what the tried to do some. Wicked Foxy Dragon, we were also the only ones vaccinated. Yeah, you know what? To some degree, they must be aware of the fact that this rhetoric is literally killing their voting base. Crazy to me. Tinkerbell, the format is so wild. They give a rehearsed speech about what's wrong with America and then pivot to, and that's why we have to deregulate orphan-crushing factories. Yes. Well put. I might steal that line and credit you in something. And that's why we have to deregulate orphan-crushing factories. Snicks would be a vaccine bitching again, like that's new, right? Wireless mic, there was 50 years of data for it, you schmuck. Exactly. Tamara Chance to Tinkerbell, we need to privatize orphan-crushing factories. You guys are killing me. I love it. Going back up a little bit, Anti-corporatist, continuing with his comment from earlier, actually, Nikki, a bunch of them are made in India and Mexico and West Virginia. I'm sorry. Richard Hinckley, all medicines are made in China now. There are no giant pharma corps with drug research and manufacturing here. Sure, Jan. Yeah, famously, the COVID vaccine, the first one that came out, and the medical breakthrough, which one day your hell, probably already your children are gonna learn about or have learned about, was made by a Turkish guy, and Turkish gal and guy in Germany, funded by U.S. dollars. It was a worldwide effort. It genuinely was. The level of innovation present in an mRNA vaccine, it's difficult for me to find the words to lay out why I think that's so important. But I do think that's innovative to the point of game changing. It doesn't surprise me that Republicans are so against it, because it is so beneficial to us all. It basically, the reason for it being so beneficial is it allows us to do vaccination like they do in the movies, where they get a little sample of the virus and they're like, now to make a vaccine for it. Deep ... There it is. Except instead of being this quick, it's about a year. But I'm sorry, I'm just thrown by the fact that they flashed Trust right after Cuomo was on screen, the guy that ran cover for his brother. But anyway, the point being, the mRNA vaccine is like the process of making a vaccine in this manner is truly the innovative thing. And the fact that it was like a medical breakthrough happened because the world was focusing its efforts on something should be taken note of. And if we could get rid of the Republicans, of the conservative psychos all around the world, just one at a time, kick their asses out of power and keep them out, we could be in a new era 10 years from now. We could be in the kind of era that we get to experience that we would have only fantasized about our great-grandchildren getting to experience, if only assholes like this weren't part of the equation.
So we're going to give you 45 seconds for this last one. Governor Christie, we're going to start with you. Which former president would you draw inspiration from for your own presidency, and why?
I would draw inspiration from Ronald Reagan. In the last year, I've spent a lot of time writing a book about President Reagan that's going to be called What Would Reagan Do? That book's going to come out early in 2024. And what I learned more than anything else was that Ronald Reagan was a slave to the truth. Ronald Reagan stood up for the truth, whether it was popular or unpopular.
You know, at some point, I'm going to find a way to present to you guys the behind the bastards on Ronald Reagan. But for the record, he was a probable rapist, and he was a definite liar when it came to Iran-Contra. He did not stand for the truth. He stood for the same thing all Republicans stand for, thieving from you to line his own pockets.
Washington, when you look at the responsibilities he had of how do you go and take on this great American experiment and make sure that the people are protected. And they always knew that government was intended to secure the rights and freedoms of the people. It was never meant to be all things to all people. And then you look at Abraham Lincoln, and you look at the challenges, and you look at the division that happened in our country, and the ability to lead in spite of the loud noises and say, what will bring out the best in people to get us to go forward is always something that's important. And I think we need that now more than ever.
Governor DeSantis.
Reagan, Washington, Lincoln, excellent. One of the guys I'll take inspiration from is Calvin Coolidge. Now, people don't talk about him a lot. He's one of the few presidents that got almost everything right. He understood the proper role of the federal government under the Constitution. We need to restore the U.S. Constitution as the centerpiece of our national life, and that requires a president who understands the original understanding of the Constitution, who has a good sense of the Bill of Rights, and who knows how we've gone off track.
So no blacks. Got it.
Imposing its will on us and is being weaponized against us. So Silent Cal knew the proper role of the federal government. The country was in great shape when he was president of the United States. We can learn an awful lot from Calvin Coolidge.
Over to you, Mr. Ramaswamy, to conclude our history lesson.
Sure. Well, I will say Ron picked a president who was born on July 4th. I'll pick one who died on July 4th. It's Thomas Jefferson. He was 33 years old when he wrote the Declaration of Independence, and you all are sitting on a swivel chair today. He invented the swivel chair while he was at it, while writing that Declaration of Independence. That's that founding spirit that we miss, that we're the pioneers, we're the explorers, the guy who sent him out on the Lewis and Clark expeditions. And I think a lot about what would Thomas Jefferson say to today's Republican Party. And I think one thing he'd remind us of, we haven't talked about it as much tonight, but I think it is one of the interesting ideological discussions we're having in our party is freedom of speech. You get to express your mind freely no matter how heinous the opinion. Thomas Jefferson understood that. He's an inspiration for me.
Thank you, Mr. Ramaswamy. And believe it or not, it's time for closing statements. Governor Christie, would you like to begin?
Sure, thank you. I want you all to kind of picture in your minds Election Day. You'll all be heading to the polls to vote, and that's something that Donald Trump will not be able to do, because he will be convicted of felonies before then, and his right to vote will be taken away. You know, look, here's the bottom line. You can boo about it all you like and continue to deny reality. But if we deny reality as a party, we're going to have 4 more years of Joe Biden. When my colleagues here raised their hands and said they would support him, even if he was a convicted felon, the bigger problem with it is they were confirming the lies he's told to the American people. If you're too timid to take on Trump, believe me, others will see that timidity. Xi, Putin, and the Ayatollah, the border crossers on the southern border, and the criminals in our streets. They'll sense that timidity, and they'll take advantage of that failure of leadership. We need to get back to an old American idea that every person is responsible for their own conduct, even a president. I'll be the kind of president who has the humility that knows that you work for the people. It's not the other way around. I will earn your trust. I want to earn your vote.
Thank you, Governor Christie. Mr. Ramaswamy?
I'll use this to just address a topic we didn't talk about tonight, but I think is one of the most important topics that needs to be discussed. That is this climate change agenda that is shackling this country like a set of handcuffs. I said it at the first debate, and I stand by it. The climate change agenda is a hoax because it has nothing to do with the climate. That's what we have to see. 98% reduction in the climate disaster-related deaths in the last century. 8 times as many people are going to die of cold temperatures this year than warm ones. Yet against that backdrop, there's an issue coming up in Iowa. It's core to Iowa farmers. I met Kim.
They're all jackasses. Look, gang, it's 9:58. Did I say 9:59? I guess I did. I guess I did, didn't I? But then DeSantis, too, just to get to Haley. Look, Ramaswamy's got nothing worth a damn to say. Haley might, but I want to go hang out with my buddies. Y'all, I'll see you on Left Past 10.